Okay.
All right.
All right. So, welcome to the monthly live health coaching call with Dr. Sam for DNA Decoded Gold. Today, we're going to be talking about exercise and recovery, which was highly requested the last time that we met. And you'll be able to pull up your report and ask any questions about your dot colors and your exercise recovery VO2 max. So, for those of you who haven't met Dr. Sam, he is our brilliant functional medicine doctor here, and he brings some humor and spice to our calls oftentimes, which makes it a little bit more fun to learn about health. And this is Lily, his co-host. Is Lily available, Dr.
Well,
Sam?
Lily is napping right next to me. You can make a
Also, hi,
cameo if you
Lily.
want. Yeah.
Oh, here comes
Okay,
Lily.
so Lily's making a cameo. Hi, everyone.
Oh, so cute. My name is Crystal. I've been a health coach for over 10 years now, and I've been working with Dr. Sam for over 2 years now. I'm a soccer mom, a Navy spouse, a Connecticut homesteader. We raise our own chickens and eggs, and we're working on getting sheep right now for the summer. And I love to do gardening. I just got an amazing greenhouse that I'm so grateful for. And I love gardening, and I love to just stay busy with lots of different projects. And I'll be the one supporting you through email and supplement review calls and any additional questions that you might have when you reach out. So today we're going to be talking about how to master your recovery, how to avoid overtraining depending on your dot color, how to boost your VO2 max, optimize your oxygen intake, how to prevent injuries, again, depending on your dot color. We want to identify your genetic weak links to learn what specific training modalities work for you. You're going to learn about how to train with more precision, and Dr. Sam will likely talk about his HIIT training recommendations, and then also how to fuel your body. So, how to align your food and what supplements to take to really support your exercise and recovery. So I'll go ahead and stop my share and I'll let Dr. Sam share his screen. And if you guys want to pull up your reports, then you can review your exercise and recovery as we go along, and that might generate some questions that you have.
So, I'm gonna. This is a sample report that. Uh, this is a sample report that everyone should have. This is page 6. So, page 6 is the most important page of the whole report, simply because it summarizes the most important components into one page. So we have diet in the upper left, supplements in the upper right, and then we have a hydration in the bottom right, and then we have exercise in the bottom left. And this is one of the most important pages. This one should be ideally printed out to help as a visual reminder. And today we're going to focus on exercise and recovery. And this is a report from an actual person. It's a summary. It's an anonymized, but this is someone's real report. And we're going to cover exercise in detail. So we're going to go over the bigger slides. But before we do that, I just want to remind everyone about like the quick summary page. So for this person, the bottom left talks about the fiber type. They are a red dot. Now, this is normally red and yellow are bad in air quotes, but the fiber type is one case where it's not bad. It's just they just kept the same traffic light three color system for just designating if someone was a slow twitch, intermediate twitch for yellow, and a fast twitch for green. So a red or yellow dot in your muscle fiber type does not mean it's a bad fiber type. It's just different. There's a couple genes where red and yellow don't mean bad, just different. This is one of them. So if you're a red dot, that means you're more you're more optimized, I should say, to perform better for long distance. Yellow is much closer to green in this case. Yellow is an intermediate twitch. I'm a yellow dot, but the intermediate is not midway between red and green in terms of slow and fast twitch. It's actually, you can kind of see it here. Well, we can skip down to, but you can see it a bit better here in the bigger slide. Yellow is a mixture, but it's biased towards fast twitch or sprint-like muscle fiber types. So I'm an intermediate. That means that I'm more of a generalist when it comes to performance in sports. I mean, I remember in in school, like I was never the best at any specific sport, but I was good at all of them, but I was not definitely not the best. And People who are green dots, they're very sprint focused. And I want to point out that just because someone is a green, yellow, or red dot doesn't mean they're not able or should not do other types of exercise. So, for example, a red dot is more endurance based. That means that you're more endurance based in terms of higher potential for better performance relative to yellow and green dot fiber types. So it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do safe high intensity interval training. It just means don't expect you're going to win any CrossFit events. And the same thing, like if you're a green dot, you're not going to win long distance events compared to elite level. If you're elite training against a red type for endurance, it is extremely low probability you will ever match their ability, their innate genetic capacity. In fact, this gene test, not fit gene specifically, but this gene is used um, for certain countries that try to really winnow their Olympic athletes as early as possible. It sounds a bit Orwellian, but it happens where they kind of pick, 5 and 6 year olds to represent their country when they turn whatever age, but they start their training vigorously very, very young. And they use genetics to determine also like, okay, we have these two elite athletes that are like 5 or 6 years old. What Olympic sport are they going to try to win gold medal for us? And depending on their fiber type, they're going to be shunted into different sports. I spoke with a gentleman this week who was a elite level professional competitive cyclist. He biked and over 20,000 miles a year. Just hold that number in your brain for a little bit. 20,000 miles a year over that. I was kind of stunned, but knowing what I know about how obsessive cyclists are, that doesn't kind of shock me too much, except on the initial 30-second hit of like, wow, that's a lot of miles. I mean, you can do the numbers on that if it's uh he's doing if it's in round numbers, if he's training 333 days a year and you divide that by 20,000, that's on average 60 miles a day.
Mm.
Just just for some perspective there. Um which means that if you're cycling really hard at even if you're cycling at 30 miles an hour, that's the minimum 2 hours a day of that level of speed. Like just do the math. It's an insane amount of hours. Anyway, he unfortunately was a green dot. He was a sprinter muscle type, and he thrashed his body and got super sick because he was overworking his muscle type. He was in the wrong sport. He was in the wrong sport. Another person, also I spoke with, played competitive soccer, and he was also a green dot. But and you'd think, well, soccer, that's like sprinting, that's not a big deal. Well, they train by running like miles and miles a day to like build up their endurance. He would have been better off as the goalie because that's a different type of training than the long distance running that they train for them. So I hope that
Yeah.
illustrates what I'm talking about. Like there, you can be mismatched if you're going for high levels of performance. That doesn't mean you can't do sprinting if you're in slow twitch or longer distance if you're a fast twitch. Just don't overdo it and don't have high expectations about your ability to compete at the highest levels. Is that clear to everyone? Like, I don't want to deflate people and whatever their athletic aspirations are, but I don't want you to get hurt or disappointed unnecessarily. Um, so it also helps you understand like where's your reality. I say this I say this like in a lot of podcasts. Like I'm a fan of reality, and knowing your fiber type is a really really good reality check. Like really good. In fact, in the jiu-jitsu space, in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Jocko Willink, who's a very famous podcaster in certain circles, and he's like a however many stripe black belt in jiu-jitsu and all the rest of it. He talks about how, and when you look at him, he looks like imagine the most cartoonishly caricatured Navy SEAL, and then multiply it by 100, and then you get about halfway towards what Jocko looks like. Like he's his jarhead has a jarhead and his biceps have biceps. And those of you that have seen pictures of him, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He is an elite jujitsu practitioner, and he's an intermediate twitch. And so what he talked about muscle fiber types and that it affects your game. So if you're doing jujitsu and you're a fast twitch, your strategy is to, as quickly as possible, choke out your opponent because you've got the advantage in the first 2 minutes before you start to gas out. If you're an intermediate twitch like Jocko, your job is to play defense for the first 2 minutes and then really go on offense for the next 5 minutes or less, and before you gas out. And your job, if you're a red dot, is to play defense as long as possible so the slow and intermediate twitches totally gas out because you can just keep going. So and many people may not do jujitsu, but I feel like it's a helpful example of
Mhm.
like where you're or how you can optimize for your chosen sport or your chosen physical activity, and also like how you want to express yourself in your sport. If people are doing jujitsu, and they know their fiber type, they know how they should optimize to win. If you're doing a form of dance or cycling even has styles like Lance Armstrong. I mean, look, everyone's style in the Tour de France is lots of blood doping and testosterone, but moving that style behind. That was supposed to be a joke. No one's laughing. That's fine. That's fine. There is actual styles of pedaling. And I know this because one of my instructors was Lance Armstrong's chiropractor who was on the Tour de France with him. And that the people can either have like lower have do higher gear faster pedaling or lower gear slower pedaling. It's a different style. And so you can act and like I he didn't talk about it back then because I took the class with him back like 20 years ago. He didn't talk about fiber types back then, but I suspect people's fiber types influence what type of pedaling style people would do. So if you're more of I'm just gonna from first principles here. If you're a cyclist and you're a green dot, you're gonna do better at doing um, faster pedaling in shorter bursts than a long distance slower pedal than a red dot slower pedaling over longer bursts over longer periods of time just to match your fiber type. Um,
Dr.
so
Sam, I have a question about the yellow dot because I'm a
uh-huh,
yellow dot, the mixed fiber.
me too.
Even though I'm a mixed fiber and I can do well either way, you say there's more of a potential for the power sprint. Is
Yeah,
that
you're
right?
biased. So I don't have exact numbers, but if we just take these are not correct numbers, it's just for sake of illustration. Let's
Hmm.
say endurance is like 80% slow twitch, 20% fast twitch, because everyone's got some mixture. Let's just say it's 80%, 20%. And let's say fast twitch is 80% fast twitch, 20% endurance. Then intermediate is like 60-40 favoring power, not
Mm.
50-50.
Hmm.
again, these numbers are made up, but it's just to make the point.
Yeah, that makes sense because I feel so much better when I sprint versus endurance.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm the same. I do much better if I do sprint than endurance. Any other questions on this? Okay. So so then the question is, okay, what do we do about this? No, aside from the discussion we just had on like how do you have a reality check? How do you adapt your favorite sport or exercise to your fiber type so you don't injure yourself and you also have realistic expectations about how you can perform in your chosen sport? The other thing is like, okay, what do we do then in general? So the general recommendations for people who are wanting to exercise are number one, um, don't be silly. Have good biomechanics, ideally get an exercise coach, adapt your exercise and activities to your history, your mobility, pain, structural capacity, physical limitations, your personal physique. I'm not playing basketball, or if I am, it's only like whatever Spud Webb or Muggsy Bogues is doing, like I just need to I need a reality check there. Uh, and like, what are your other goals? So like, there's a whole bunch of personal variables that come in with your age, your health, your goals, your interests, your experience. Uh, are you a weekend warrior? Do you have more risk of injury versus have you been doing athletics your whole life and you've been very careful, or have you been a gym rat and now you need shoulder and hip surgeries because you've been just powering through weights? I mean, I saw this in practice all the time. I have these really ripped dudes, but they had like shoulder and hip surgeries because they were just injuring their joints because they were lifting wrong. Um, so first, practical implementation applications, just don't be silly. Like take like you've got one body. I'm doubting we're going to be able to transport our brains from chips into other things and within our lifetimes. But so I'm just going with that. Uh, and then the general recommendations for optimizing health, and I'm just going to make the distinction between optimizing for your health versus optimizing for your sport. And this came from my one of my neurology instructors in graduate school who worked on a lot of elite athletes, including Olympiads you would know by name. Um, and he said that there is a big difference between training for your sport and training for your health.
Mhm.
Uh, WWF wrestlers, they have to train in a way for their sport. Doesn't mean it's good for their health. The Tour de France cyclists, they have the shortest lifespan, I believe, of any elite sport in the world are the Tour de France cyclists. And
Oh,
when I was the Lance Armstrong's chiropractor, Jeff Dr. Jeff what's his last name? Anyway, his name's Dr. Jeff. Um, he said that after a day of the Tour de France, you could look at each of the cyclists and they look like they aged 10 years because of all the free radical damage that was generated from just pushing their bodies beyond human limitations. It is. I think the Tour de France is an exercise in just slow public execution of these athletes. So, and if you want to know, and I don't, and some people, I'm not a big fan of long distance endurance sports. I actually have a talk on YouTube, several, called "Why Marathon Runners Look Like Cancer Patients." I'm dead
mhm.
serious. That's the name of the talk. And I've been on podcasts. Lisa Tamati is New Zealand's most famous ultra marathoner. I was on her podcast talking about this, and she agreed with me from a health standpoint. It was not a good idea to do the ultra marathons. Basically, what happens is that when you do long distance running, like you just pounding pavement constantly, miles and miles, you secrete a ton of cortisol, which is the body's stress hormone that also degrades muscle tissue to convert protein into sugar so that you can keep going. Well, when you look at a marathoner, and I grew up outside Heartbreak Hill for the Boston Marathon, arguably the most famous marathon in the world, Heartbreak Hill being the most famous part of it. Heartbreak Hill, for those of you who don't know, is I don't know how many miles, but I'm Kelly, you may know the answer to this. Is it like 6 miles of the 24? Something like that? It's like it's Heartbreak Hill. People are like, oh my God, Heartbreak Hill, it must be like this. No, it's way worse. It's like this. It just doesn't end.
Mm.
Like it does not end. It is soul crushing. That's why I call it Heartbreak Hill. And it's at the end of the race. Like you're already like you maybe have like a 2 mile set. I don't may have the exact numbers, but I think it's like 2 miles only that's like flat or downhill after that. But it is soul crushing. So um
Dr.
I
Sam,
grew
can you?
up
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I grew up right off right off Commonwealth Avenue, and I would go. I remember I'm 6 years old. I'm standing there with my mother, who's a medical doctor, and I look at the marathoners going by, and I say to her at 6 years old, "Mommy, they look sick." And she says, "No, no, they're they're doing cardio." I'm like, "Mommy, they look sick." Like, no, it's good for their heart. "Mommy, they look sick." Okay, I remember that. I will remember that for the rest of my life, and that has always bothered me. And it only was until I learned from Dr. Mark Smith, PhD, who was actually a graduate student in the 70s when they were doing all of the marathoning research, all the jogging research. And he said that the research was completely contrived. You know, it's because he was in it. Basically, before the oxygen consumption, um, you all they had was a stopwatch and a ruler. And then they found this new thing where if you just measure how much oxygen you consume, suddenly you can publish papers. And the thing about you either publish or perish in the you publish or perish in academia. So what happened is that they figured out that zone cardio exercise was the fastest way to burn oxygen. Therefore, you could publish papers. Therefore, you can get funding. And then they extrapolated all these health claims to it. And why do you think you have to do 20 to 60 minutes of zone cardio 2 to 5 times a week? Where do you think that recommendation came from? It has nothing to do with measuring health. It has everything to do with what was convenient for the PhD researchers to grab some data from the graduate students between classes and during labs. Hop on for 20 to 60 minutes, 2 to 5 times a week to get some data to see how much oxygen we can burn. That's where the numbers came from. That is it. That's the research. It was 100% focused on the convenience of collecting data. And this came from the horse's mouth who was on those treadmills in the 70s.
So, Dr.
And
Sam, I have a
yeah,
question.
yes.
I would like to know, since we're in a group here, like I'm a red dot and I
Mhm.
love walking. I
Yeah.
love swimming. I love light weights. Is that the right protocol?
So for people who are red dots, the way to optimize for health is to do 2 to 3 times a week of safe high intensity interval training. And then to do regular moving, like lots of walking, tai chi, qigong, biking, uh, light weights and toning. Like I would put that in kind of regular if you want to do it more regularly. But this, I make a distinction between movement and exercise, and I make a distinction between movement, toning, and high intensity interval training and your sport. Like
Hmm.
they're different things.
Dr.
And
Sam, for the
yes,
HIIT, can you, so for people that don't know exercise that well,
yeah.
can you explain high intensity interval training, like what that is, what that looks like?
Yeah, that was gonna be that was gonna be the contrast to what the long distance stuff was about.
Oh.
So, and then Nicole, did I answer your question, or I mean, I'm gonna go into more detail about what exercises, the different things look like.
Yeah, please. Yeah,
Okay.
please. That's
So,
helpful.
so if we're talking about optimal health, we're talking about can you these dots, the red, yellow, and green dots are for your fiber type are again like what are you going to optimally perform in, and how can you moderate what you do to be the best in your sport and also not overdo something against your fiber type if you're going to try to perform at a very high level. So, but the recommendations for what is healthiest is what's listed here. And then you can modify a bit based on your dot color. Um, but the dot color here, the dot color is more about what are you going to do for your higher level performance. So safe high intensity interval so to understand why safe high intensity interval training is so effective, and we're going to go back to why super long, like crazy marathon-y long distance stuff is not good for you. So when you do really long distance, you you create a lot of cortisol, but not a lot of growth hormone and not a lot of testosterone. When you look at a marathoner, they look like I mean I'll even just pull it up here.
They look beautiful, like our dear Kelly.
You're
Uh,
muted, Kelly.
uh,
Saying he's not lying. Like when I'm in the marathon, you do. You look like a cancer patient. He's not lying.
So, Kelly, you're a red dot, you're saying.
Yeah, and I have a question, Dr. Sam, because
mhm.
I'm the kind of person that likes to toe lines. So I understand what you're saying about like, so could you tell me where the line is for where it goes from being healthy for my fiber type that I can do these endurance things? Where's the line of like, okay, you can stop here because I like like I liked my 2 hour runs. You know what I mean? Like there was something about now you're not wrong. I know that the all the things that are happening that are bad. So, but I still like those long blocks of time. So do you have like a person who is allowed to or like what's my limits?
Sure. I'm just trying to pull. Let me give me a second. I'm just pulling up the uh
Debbie's on green. Good job, Debbie.
all right.
Punch bring you down.
You know what's interesting is that when I do exercise, I love the hit. I love pushing myself to the point where I'm crying or so exhausted. And it's not an hour, it's 45 minutes or 30 minutes versus, being in the gym forever. I can't do that.
Yeah. Okay, just 2 more seconds and then I'll pull up. Problem with having so many PowerPoints is like trying to find. There we go. Found it. Okay, that's what I wanted. Okay. It's an old photo of me when I had hair. Okay. All right. So everyone can see this.
Mhm.
Great. This is
This is
all
the marathoner. This is the sprinter. And you can see the difference in the hormone levels. This is an old website. These are very old websites, so ignore all those. The I'll just jump to here. So basically what happens is that when you do long distance running, you've got uh to make a side by here we go. High cortisol, low growth hormone, high brain stimulation. So going to your question, Kelly, when people do long distance and they enjoy it, it may be there's a lot of factors that go into why people can feel good being outside and cycling and outside and jogging. Number one, you're outside, you're in the sun, you're moving, you're stimulating your brain. You're getting away from whatever life stuff, you're running away from whatever life stuff or cycling away from it. That's a reality I think we've all have lived in some form or another. Or some of us run to the M&M's bag. That's what I used to do growing up. Uh, the so there are like people aren't kidding themselves that they can feel great. I mean, it's called a runner's high for a reason, but it's the long-term effects that I'm concerned about. So when you do high intensity interval training, you create some cortisol, yes, but you have a very high, a relatively high spike of growth hormone afterwards to help you repair. Um, and what happens is that from an evolutionary biology standpoint, if I'm a hunter-gatherer, there's I'm looking like the long endurance type fiber type. This is very helpful to forage, to walk and travel farther distances to have high, yeah, more places to forage or hunt, and also your ability to walk down quadrupeds. You can literally walk down a horse if because these animals are known to sprint, and but they can't out sprint your walking. It just takes time. So there is advantages, there's evolutionary advantages to having red dots. It's just a different niche. If I'm a sprint type, I'm more like sprint after the thing and take the thing down quickly as opposed to walk it down. Um, and when you are, but then there's the other reasons that people have, whether you're a red dot in your endurance, you still get growth hormone if you do high intensity interval training. Because if you're in an area in the wild and there's a tiger in the area and the tiger chases you and you sprint away and you escape, and your muscles are burning and you're gasping for air, that muscle burning is all the lactic acid that was generated by quickly burning through all of your fuel sources. That quick burning of your fuel sources to create lactic acid. Lactic acid is actually not just the molecule that causes a lot of pain in your muscles. It's actually a hormone signal to your brain to release growth hormone. It actually becomes a hormone. Lactic acid is a hormone. And this came directly from my learnings with Dr. Smith. This is his paper that I read into. He completely changed my world on exercise. He answered the question about why marathoners look sick because this is what he taught. This is his slide. He finally explained why the marathoners look like cancer patients. Now, if so evolutionarily, you want if a tiger is around on Tuesday, it's probably still there on Thursday. So you have a built-in mechanism to quickly build in your muscles stronger, faster, leaner because you just got chased down and escaped on Tuesday. You want to be prepared for Thursday. So that's why you have this kind of feedback mechanism to build. Now, you can overshoot this. Just walk into any CrossFit gym. Like you're not supposed to do high intensity interval training all the time, just like you're not supposed to be jogging all the time. And yes, when I do give joggers a really hard time, I give CrossFit an equal hard time. So just fair's fair, Kelly. Just saying. You're not special. I do rag on the CrossFitters plenty. Sorry to disappoint. So that's what I'm talking about. Like if your focus is on your sport versus your health, you may be doing different activities. So when we're talking about health, where's my cursor? Where are we? No, there it is. Okay. Yeah, away from the tiger. Okay, the lactic. So for those of you who watch any National Geographic YouTube videos, you can bet that 80+% of all actual uncut chases are under a minute of animal chasing animal because that follows cell physiology. It takes about a minute for your body to switch from quickly burning sugar to sprint to now burning oxygen in the mitochondria. That's why they had to do in these studies in the 70s, put people on the treadmill for 20 minutes to start burning oxygen and get tons of data over that period of time. But when you follow cell physiology, you have like 45 seconds to a minute of burning. Well, first you have your creatine phosphate, which is like the first 15, 20 seconds, depending on who you read. Then you've got like this 20 seconds to 45 seconds a minute where you're just burning sugar so fast anaerobically without oxygen to make you sprint. And like when you look at these chases of animals, it's like under a minute. it just follows until the gas, it's just following how things work in the wild. And so that lactic acid burn is the signal to build up you bigger, stronger, faster. So then the principles of high intensity interval training are one, complex compound movements. It's not just bicep curls, continuous smooth motions, and going to complete lactic acid failure within 60 seconds or less. So lactic acid failure, metabolic failure is when you have so much lactic acid you can't move your arm. That's different from mechanical failure. Mechanical failure is me walking up to a building and trying to push it, and I can't push it because I don't have mechanical advantage to push a building. That's mechanical failure. I just don't have the physics to do it. I can do push-ups mechanically, but I get such a deep lactic acid burn over enough time that I can't do the push-ups anymore. That's metabolic failure or lactic acid failure. Does everyone understand the difference?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you rest completely between sets. Rest completely is ideally burn, breath, and heart rate all return to normal, not some arbitrary 30 seconds on, 30 seconds on, 10 seconds on. Like that is just as nonsensical as um 2 to 5 times a week for 20 to 60 minutes. That is for the convenience of researchers. People who are researching Tabatas, that 10 seconds on, 30 seconds up, that is just as silly as 20 to 60 minutes, 2 to 5 times a week, because it's only for the convenience of the researchers. People have what is consistent that people should be studying is what is the time it takes for people to get into a deep muscle burn of that 45 to 60 seconds, which can vary wildly. I had patients I practiced in the Florida of New Zealand, where there's a lot of retirees, and I had like 80-year-old osteoporotic grandmothers. If I told them to do wind sprints, they'd snap in half. So I had them do standing push-ups, and they would do standing wall push-ups till they got that deep lactic acid burn within 45 to 60 seconds in their biceps and triceps. Whereas someone like me, who's much more athletic, when I first started doing high intensity interval training, I had a special stepper. In fact, I still have it. It's next to me. It's a specialized stepper that when I first got on it, I got into a deep muscle burn just from standing on the stepper within 45 seconds. But it took me over 40 minutes to recover. Over 40 minutes. I stopped counting after 40 because I was so embarrassed. 6 months later, I was still on that stepper getting the deep muscle burn within 45 to 60 seconds, so really going into it when I reached that metabolic. It's not just feeling the burn, it's like, I can't go any further. I was not, I, me, It wasn't just me on the stepper. I had 20-pound weights in each arm doing flies as I was on the stepper, and my recovery time dropped to 5 minutes. So what improved was not how much longer I can stay on the burn. What improved was how much more intensity I needed to get into that lactic acid burn and how much less time I needed to recover. That's how you measure success. That's what makes this safe high intensity interval training, not just high intensity interval training. Safe high intensity interval training is tracking your capacity to get into that deep lactic acid burn in 45 seconds to a minute, followed by full recovery. Your full recovery will vary from person to person, and what intensity you need varies from person to person. Therefore, it's so much safer than this random nonsense Tabata 30 seconds on, 10 seconds off. Does everyone understand the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is actually customizing your exercise to your individual self, whatever your capacity is, assuming you're not doing anything mechanically unsafe and all those other disclaimers at the very beginning of our talk of like all your goals and all these like your health and your capacity and all the rest of it. Like sharp pain, that's not lactic acid pain. That's like you're injured. Like there's different types of pain. Lactic acid pain is a very, 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 very distinct type of pain. That deep muscle burn, ache. It's not sharp pain. It's not nerve pain. It's not. it is burning pain, but it's not like a cigarette butt in your skin type burn. It's like a globalized, like just burny deep muscle pain. Um, Not in your joints, in the muscles. So that's and then how do you exercise then? So what you do is you do a combination of these type of movements for a max of 30 minutes total combined workout and recovery time. So what that means is that you do like just go back to my example. I did one stepper on the I still have it, it's right there. That stepper, that's since 2007. I've had this thing. So it's 20 years. Um, and took me 40 minutes to recover. Guess what? I didn't get back on the stepper because I had exceeded that 30-minute threshold of combined stepping and recovery. So then 6 months later, I'm doing the 20-pound weights and the flies, and then as I'm on the stepper. So then it's like a minute on the stepper, 5 minutes recovery. Recovery when the burn goes away. I honestly don't care about heart rate or breath rate compared to lactic acid. I really don't because it's the lactic acid that's the thing that's actually triggering the physiology. And a lot of people would think, whoa, what about heart rate and this? It's like, no, heart rate was again another thing that they just could easily measure as opposed to lactic acid burn. There is value in heart rate, but there's more value in doing the safe high intensity interval training following your burn recovery. So, and by the way, you're going to train your heart rate anyway if you do this because you want your heart not to be a diesel truck. This is what another reason why a lot of marathoners have heart attacks, including one of our closest family friends died of a heart attack. He was a famous marathoner, dear family friend and pillar of the community. He died of a heart attack, not in the Boston Marathon, but hiking Mount Kilimanjaro with his son because your heart is mostly nervous tissue, not muscle tissue. Your heart adapts to the level of exercise that you do because it's very efficient. So when you all you do is sleep, sit, walk around, and jog, your heart has adapted to sleep, sit, walk around, jog. It has not adapted to sprinting and hiking where you need this level of adaptability. You're a diesel truck, not a Jaguar. You want your heart to be a Jaguar to be able to adapt to multiple things. So he exceeded his heart's capacity on Mount Kilimanjaro, died in his son's arms. I mean, I poke fun and talk about why marathoners sound like cancer patients, but honestly, like we've lost family friends because of this. They're dead because they did not properly train all the gears of their heart. So you want a Jaguar for a heart, not a diesel truck. And if you do safe high intensity interval training, you're training your heart. You can go. You see this all the time. Marathoners cannot switch over to sprinting. Sprinters can become very crappy marathoners, but you can't go in reverse. That is so hard to do because you can really put yourself at risk. Um, so when I'm back to the 5 minute, 1 minute high intensity, 5 minute recovery, 1 minute intensity, but then my next recovery is like 8 minutes. You see how we're adding the minutes here? Then I do another minute. Then the next recovery is like 10. And I'm at like, I was it 6 plus 9 plus 10, 20. I'm like at minute 25, 26. I can do one more 1 minute. And then my recovery will definitely exceed beyond the 30 minute. And like, I'm done. That's it. That's what I do.
But
And
Dr. Sam,
yeah.
can I ask, can you give some examples like G is a yellow?
Mhm.
So, and Debbie's a green. So when it comes to their green and yellow, I would like to hear what they like to do. Like Debbie, you gave the example of you really like hit. Um, I would like to know, Gia, what you like to do and how that aligns with yellow.
I actually can relate a lot to what he's saying because I was a sprinter back in the day, and that's what was comfortable to me. So now when I exercise, I like to do like 60-minute or 60-minute, 60-second things quickly. Like at the gym, they have where you can go and do all of these different exercises within 30 minutes and you do it for 3 minutes each. That to me is satisfying and I feel I get the best results. Am I doing the right thing?
So for people, what I would say is like these gyms that have like 3 minute stations, this, that, and the other thing, and then the recovery station recovery, like they're moving in the right direction.
Okay.
But if you want the fully personalized, customized, what is best for you, it's this model. What
Okay.
exercise you do is up to you. You can do this with cycling and marathoning. I've had people switch from just constant zone cardio to
Mhm.
walk, sprint. They sprint, then they walk till they recover, then they sprint, and then they walk till they recover, then they sprint, and they walk till they recover. So again, I'm talking about health. I'm not talking about sport.
Got it.
So for optimal health, and then so here's the way people have sports that they do that don't perfectly fit into this. I totally get that. I understand that. So here's how to adapt. Just in your mind, if you do longer distance things, make
Mhm.
sure you punctuate with some sprinting in order to get that big growth hormone and testosterone spike to heal up your body so you don't erode away from all the long distance.
Okay.
If you love your long distance things, you find like there's a social like I had a patient in New Zealand that was deeply depressed, like deeply depressed.
Mhm.
And he loved doing his 5Ks. It's like and he was absolutely overdoing the 5Ks, but I made the call that he's outside, he's with people, he's moving. So my job is to help him recover as much as possible,
Mhm.
even though he was overrunning.
I
Like
see.
you just have to make the call. What's the highest priority here?
Mhm.
His mental well-being was 100% the highest priority there.
Right.
So I was just like, okay, we're just going to adapt to what's best. So for people who are wanting to do long distance as a sport beyond what may be, quote, healthy,
Mhm.
then just focus on recovery more
Mhm.
and incorporate the the safe high intensity interval training. If you like to do lots and lots of high intensity interval training like CrossFit,
Mhm.
then it's like that. When I say you, I'm not saying you specifically,
Right.
but like
Right.
the people who are like overdoing, who are in the opposite problem and they're overdoing CrossFit,
Mhm.
then what I tell them is that you need to build in more recovery. So give yourself at least a day or two off in
Okay.
between your mega things so you can deflame.
Got it.
Or if you love the community and you don't want to miss your day at the gym because all your friends are there and you're cheering for PRs and all the rest of it, fine. On days 1, 3, and 5,
Mhm.
you can do your high intensity interval stuff. But on days 2, 4, and 6, you go into your CrossFit community and you do movement, not high intensity.
Got
Movement,
it.
yoga, tai chi, qigong, walking, light cycling. Like,
Mhm.
again, I'm just talking about health. I'm not talking about sport.
Got it.
I mean, I've been involved in plenty of sports where it was deeply unhealthy, the level of training in order to perform. Martial arts is a great example. That was not healthy, but it was worth it.
Yeah.
It was absolutely not healthy. Particularly training leading up to your black belt grading.
Mhm.
That was a crucible.
Mhm.
So if people can make the distinction between what am I doing for my health versus what am I doing for my sport,
Mhm.
then we have a reality here that we can now adapt. I am not going to tell someone if you love marathoning and jogging or long distance cycling or you love CrossFit, I'm not going to tell you you shouldn't do that. I want to say if you're going to do that, here's the realities you're going to run into, and here's the ways that you can best adapt so you have as much longevity and health as possible despite the sport you're engaged with. And by the way, your fiber type will help tell you if you how much longevity you have in your particular sport.
Okay.
Like if you're the red dot endurance, but you're doing sprinting all the time, or you're that 20,000 mile a year cyclist who's a red dot, that there was a green dot in sprinting, that was a bad mix.
Mhm.
That was just that should not have happened. But he was elite level. Like that was crazy elite.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Hey, Dr. Sam, do you want to talk about the supplements that are really good
I'll talk about
for?
recovery. Yes. Let me talk about recovery because I feel like that's going to be extremely useful for people. Um,
We have
okay.
about 8 more minutes just to let you know.
Sure thing. Let me get to the slides. Hold on.
I know I want to hire you as like my trainer now.
All right. Let me
Marathons, and the next thing you're gonna be like the national marathon coaching champion everybody wants.
actually what I do want to do is I want to get this in the hands of sports coaches
Oh, you
so
do.
that then they have a reality check around their athletes.
That's a great idea,
Yeah.
Kelly. With that.
Yep.
Um, so now we're talking about recovery and injury risk. And so there's two main components around injury risk. Um, One is collagen. So collagen is it's a type of tissue that makes muscles and tendons and ligaments and basically like your musculoskeletal system. If you have a red or yellow dot, that means that the basic like the rebar that makes the structure of your body is not as healthy or strong. And it is what it is. It is what it is. So what that means is that people are more prone to injuries because the rebar is not as strong. I mean, it's not the best example. The rebar is rigid, but whatever. Maybe it's like the rubber bands. 'Cause some are like frayed and frayed. I don't know. If someone comes with a better analogy, let me know. Um, so that means that you're higher risk of injury. Take that seriously, particularly if you do a lot of intense sports. Intensity can be a lot like CrossFit, or intense can be long distance running and cycling. So if you have risk for your collagen, you need additional nutrient support. Collagen powder, inositol, creatine. I'd add vitamin C to this as well. That vitamin C will be listed there in the next update. Those are wonderful products. You can get all of those, if you're watching this and you have access to the supplement company that I talk about, they have these products. And it's collagen is really important to help rebuild collagen that's more easily damaged or not as high integrity. The other things that contributes to injuries is how hyper-inflammatory are you? So if you're hyper-inflammatory like I am, then that means that I can't do as much intense exercise as someone else. So I'll give you an example. I'm a yellow dot and I'm a red dot in exercise-induced inflammation and muscle injury. So if I'm a yellow dot in fiber type, intermediate twitch, and a red dot in exercise-induced inflammation and muscle injury, then and I meet someone who's also a yellow dot in fiber type, but they're a green dot in exercise-induced inflammation and muscle injury, that means that they can exercise. Like I've had to learn that I can do high intensity interval training 2 to at most 3 times a week. I give myself at least 2 days off in between. Occasionally, I do a one day after one day off. The person who's a green dot in exercise-induced inflammation, they can much more easily do safe high intensity interval training 3 times a week with only one day off in between because they don't get as inflamed as I do. You can walk into any CrossFitter gym and you look around, you know who's inflamed because they have this layer of water weight on they may be strong, but they're not defined. They're not cut. They look inflamed. Like you can't, some of them have reddish, ruddy skin, but you can't make out the full definition of their muscles despite all the workout. They're over inflamed. The inflammation is causing water retention, which is now kind of putting this water layer on top of their body. So when people have, based on if they're red, if they've got red and yellow dots in their collagen components and red and yellow dots in their exercise-induced inflammation and muscle injury, you know, people must focus on recovery almost and if they're red, as and more importantly than how much they focus on their exercise. So here are the most common sense recovery principles for recovery. Warming up, Okay, don't stretch before an athletic activity. You actually can get injured more easily if you stretch before, because you're stretching a cold muscle, you're creating micro tears. But if you stretch after, that's much better. And the sport that revealed this is baseball, which is the most statistically driven sport on the planet and has been for over 100 years. They found that baseball players were injured more often if they stretched before they worked, they warmed up, they stretched during their warm up to play versus stretched after. So, um, anti-inflammatory diet with sufficient protein, that's a whole other talk. We talked about the histamine stuff and the diets and other talks. Nutrients, collagen, protein, and also creatine, and then vitamin C. Post-recovery strategies like swimming, yoga, stretching, walking, saunas, and cold plunges. Swimming is interesting because you're basically cooling your muscles when you're in the water, assuming the water is not body temperature. So that's one reason why swimmers can have a lot of longevity with exercise is because they're constantly deflaming because it's kind of like a low grade ice pack that they're constantly in that's cooling them off. Um, Regular daily movement, Tai Chi, Qigong, biking, and avoid overtraining and scheduling the daily movement on the off days. Like I described for the CrossFitters who just want to stay in the community, just go to the gym and do movement. You do rehab movements during that time. You do brain exercises. You do Tai Chi. You do walking. You do different types of more like structural yoga or yin yoga or whatever. Like conceptually, we you can adapt this to uh
Hey, Dr.
the
Sam.
yes,
We're at just a minute, so I'm wondering, I would really love to dive into this in next month's meeting.
sure.
It feels a little bit rushed, but this is really great information, especially after we just talked about all of the exercise. So I
Mhm.
would love to see this go more in depth next month. And Crystal put into the chat for everybody listening the Designs for Health link with the 15% off coupon for the supplements. And she also shared a new product that Designs for Health has.
Oh yeah, that's brand new. I forgot about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that one's
So
epic.
that is a great one. Sam, if you want to click on
I'll
that
share
in
the
the chat.
screen. Oh, 1 second. Give me a second. I completely forgot they just put that in. Um, so yeah, this is an example of combining the science. So this is a stick of collagen, electrolytes, and creatine for people who work out. So it just makes it a really easy 3-in-1 um, to grab collagen and creatine and some electrolytes if you're working out and sweating.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this because I mix those three together after my
Mhm.
workouts. So now I get to just take it in one.
Yeah, makes it really easy. And yeah, if you follow the link, there's yeah, you can use the code and whatnot.
The
Uh,
code is genetics with a capital G 15 for 15% off.
yeah. Okay. So yeah, so we can talk more about recover. So we can talk more about recovery. People have a time between now and then to like look at their exercise and recovery strategies and experiment, and then come back with questions and thoughts about what it was like, and like we can continue to discuss all of these things. I was very, very, very lucky to run into Dr. Mark Smith when I was in graduate school in 2007. And he answered that riddle that I've been carrying since I was 6 years old about those marathoners. And he also explains why the CrossFitters are wrong. So again, not to pick on Kelly or any other marathoner, like we're following the science based. I mean, his mentor was Lauren Cordain, the chief scientist for all things paleo. Like that was his mentor. So when you follow, I always follow what does it track back to evolutionary biology, physiology, and psychology. And when you can literally track that 45 seconds to a minute goes right down to the anaerobic glycolytic window, everything makes sense. And I know that was a lot of jargon, but to someone who's nerdy like me, like he answered all these riddles for me. And I was able to finally put on muscle, finally, in a way that was sustainable and not getting myself injured. There's other things we can talk about with exercise, which I'm happy to share, but like that's the biggest takeaway I can give you is understand what's your reality around your fiber type. Understand what healthy, safe, high intensity interval training looks like, as opposed to movement, as opposed to training for your sport. And then understand the importance of recovery, especially for red and yellow dots in either collagen or inflammatory induced muscle injury.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sam, and thank you everybody for being here today, spending your time with us. And we're excited to see you next time, which will be the second Wednesday of May, which
good.
is May 13th.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.